Alright everyone, so this is going to be another unscripted video. Now don't worry, my Strange Roller Coasters Around the World video is still definitely underway. At this point, I'm just waiting for the sponsor to get back to me and let me know how the ad integration is before I post it. For now though, I want to give you guys some more content as a holdover. Think of this like a basket of rolls before dinner. Now for this video, specifically, I'm going to be talking about the controversy that is unfolding at Knott's Berry Farm with their roller coaster, Montezooma's Revenge. Now for those of you who have never heard of this ride, it's a relatively old roller coaster from 1978. This ride was built by German manufacturer Schwarzkopf, or Schwarzkopf. There are different pronunciations of that word, and I don't think I'll ever get it exactly right, but I'll just say Schwarzkopf. Built by Schwarzkopf, opened in 1978, and for a long time it was considered to be one of the park's most classic and beloved attractions, considering its age and considering how revolutionary it was for the time. I mean, yeah, the layout was as simple as it gets. It's just, you launch into a loop, you go up a spike, you go backwards through the loop, you go up another spike, and you're done. Simple as can be, and yet many people loved it. I loved it when I rode it back in 2019, but now there's a lot of uncertainty as to what exactly is going to happen to this ride. As you may remember, Knott's actually announced a massive refurbishment for this ride, and it was going to be renamed Montezooma the Forbidden Fortress. Now, just to be clear, quick fun fact, the original name wasn't directly named after the diarrhea people get, specifically tourists get, from drinking contaminated water in Mexico. It was actually named after a bluegrass band who regularly performed at Knott's Berry Farm. Now, the bluegrass band was likely named after the diarrhea, but that put aside, it was going to get new trains, new effects, a new launch system, and it honestly looked promising. I mean, a lot of people were irritated that they were taking the classic experience and basically completely redoing it. But there was a lot of promise to this project, except for one thing. You see, there's this manufacturer known as Kumbach. They're a Dutch-based manufacturer, and they've been known for a lot of failed projects. First of all, there were the trains they put on Python at Efteling. They basically did not ride well, and from what I've heard, they had a lot of technical problems too. Now, I do want to clarify that the incident that they were involved with when the train suddenly started moving during a ride evacuation, that wasn't Kumbach's fault. That was the fault of the people unloading the ride. When you're unloading a roller coaster, you have to unload the front first when it's in that position. And since they unloaded the back first, there was more weight on the front of the train, and so that weight pulled the train forward and caused it to go through the layout while everybody's restraints were undone. Thankfully, nobody was injured, but just wanted to clarify, that wasn't Kumbach's fault. However, Kumbach also made the controversial Vliegende Hollander, which I think that's how you pronounce it. My Dutch is terrible, to be quite honest. This ride, from what I've heard, the opening was delayed a year, and it's consistently faced technical issues. So much so that Efteling actually had to call in Intamin to fix issues specifically with the lift hill. Coincidentally, or not coincidentally, this was the only full roller coaster that Kumbach ever built, and it opened all the way back in 2007. So on top of this, and yes, there's more, they also made a train design specifically for Vekoma's SLC coaster. Now these trains, from what I know, opened at two parks, Kentucky Kingdom on T3 and Arkham Asylum Shock Therapy at Warner Brothers Movie World. That was a mouthful. Coincidentally or not coincidentally enough, these two coasters are now closed. They are no more. They've gone to meet their makers. And from what I've heard, the Kumbach trains really wore out the track and basically destroyed the ride, from what I've heard. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the trains were also considered to be extremely uncomfortable, with the lap bar portion of their over-the-shoulder restraints really pressing down hard on your thighs, like worse than Skyrush, and I don't even think Skyrush is that bad. In addition to this, as I was narrating this, I did a little search, and I found out that they also made new trains for Sea Viper at SeaWorld in Australia. That ride is also closed. Now, to be fair, there are 2 rides, from what I've researched, that still have Kumbak trains in operation. The first one is Rutsjebanen at Bakken in Denmark, and the second one is Stampeda at Port Aventura in Spain. Now, I don't know how these coasters ride. Feel free to comment down below if you've ridden either one of these. But the success rate of this company, it makes sense why people would be skeptical after learning that they were making trains for Montezooma's Revenge. So even back when the trains were revealed, people were already concerned about this refurbishment plan. And now, over a year later, people are really starting to wonder if this coaster is dead in the water without a paddle. What happened was they started work on the coaster, they brought in the contractors, everything was looking promising, they started work on the track, they were planning on refurbishing the track and making the ride smoother, putting in that new launch system, the works. But somewhere along the line, construction just came to a halt all of a sudden. There was no progress, nothing was being done, and all the while, you have cobwebs building on the track. On top of all of that, the loop is gone. That historic loop is history. It's kaput, gone. Well, not really. Part of the loop was preserved by the National Roller Coaster Museum, which is an archive based in Texas that has a lot of roller coaster memorabilia. I would love to go down there and see all that memorabilia one day. But the removal of the loop is one of the biggest things that people have been speculating about. And the biggest rumor, from what I've heard, is that apparently the contractors weren't supposed to tear down the loop like that. They were supposed to take apart the track meticulously, but they just tore it down, and the park was like, what the hell did you just do? I didn't tell you to tear it down. There are also rumors that the contractors wrecked the foundation or damaged the foundation beyond repair. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these are just rumors, and I'm not a fly on the wall at Knott's. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but there are a few things I can at least infer from looking at this whole situation. And there are some educated hypotheses, whatever, that we can make. And I also have a little bit of information from an anonymous source who, of course, naturally wishes to remain anonymous. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to claim anything to be 100% fact based on sources, because as much as I believe this source, from a journalistic point, it's not responsible to just go off of a source without getting information from the park itself. So for that reason, I'll refer to the source's information as allegedly, reportedly, etc. Allegedly, Knott's did hire Kumbak to actually do the construction, and the contractors were either Kumbak themselves or contractors that Kumbak hired. Now, supposedly, the reason Knott's went with Kumbak despite their history is because Kumbak supposedly gave them a really good deal on this refurbishment, like an amazing deal. Like, you could say it was like kind of like an offer you can't refuse, something like that. However, this turned out to be a mistake. Apparently, the contractors that Kumbak supposedly hired did a horrendous job. They damaged the ride, they tore out things that weren't supposed to be torn out, and they wrecked the foundation, supposedly. Now, this theory does make sense. I mean, let's be honest, there are a lot of bad contractors out there. And I've heard a lot of horror stories about especially contractors who were drinking on the job, left beer cans everywhere, and leaving what they were supposed to refurbish in worse condition than before. But honestly, I'm going to take this with a bit of salt, because when you really think about it, if they were doing such a terrible job, why didn't Knott's or the supervisors notice sooner? Then again, it could have just happened in one day. Like, somebody could have just taken a look at how this project was going and said, what the hell is this? Shut it down. Go away. You're fired. And in regards to the loop, I don't really know if that was meant to be taken out or not, because if the ride was going to be retracked, that would have included the loop too. But someone else pointed out that the loop was not supposed to be taken out, like completely torn down and, destroyed, but it was supposed to be sent to be refurbished. This theory also makes sense, but the fact that Knott's actually sent the National Roller Coaster Museum part of the loop kind of implies that they always planned on taking the loop out and replacing it, especially to make the track smoother. And also another thing I've heard was that there were apparently cracks in the structure, and the ride was in really, really, really bad shape, especially considering how old it is. And actually, the last time I went to Knott's in 2019, the ride almost didn't open the entire time I was there. It was rarely open, and I actually have footage of maintenance working on the ride. So it's very possible that this ride was already at the very end of its service life, and this whole refurbishment was meant to completely redo it and bring it up to standards, which makes sense, but clearly it went wrong. Now, as of right now, there's a theory that Knott's is getting ready to sue the contractors who were involved. I tried to look up if there are any lawsuits, but the Orange County court website requires you to make an account, and I didn't think that was necessary, especially because if Knott's was suing someone, I would be hearing about it in more mainstream news sources. But this doesn't mean that they won't sue the contractors. Typically, before you actually sue someone, you have to assess the damages and, compile your lawsuit together into a coherent case. That's also the reason why Knott's is whisper quiet about this whole situation. They haven't said anything publicly, not even about the ride being torn down or the ride being canceled. All that said, we did get a tiny sliver of a behind-the-scenes look from a channel called Chastain's in LA. Now here we see a guy on the phone looking royally pissed off. You can tell from his body language. He's smoking a cigarette. By the way, smoking is very bad for you. And I'm not sure if he's with Knott's or if he's with the contractors. And if he was with the contractors, why isn't there anyone else there? And why has construction been abandoned for so long? So chances are this is someone with Knott's, and he looks to be assessing the damage. Now he could be, if he is with Knott's, he could be talking to one of two people. He's either talking to someone from the contracting company or a lawyer. Once again, though, this is pure speculation, and for all I know, this could just be a maintenance worker on his cigarette break, and he could just be on the phone with a plumber or something. So what does all of this mean? And obviously, we don't know 100% for sure, but I do have a very, very strong feeling that this ride is toast. And I really hate to say that because this is a classic. I mean, for the time, this must have been like one of the most thrilling roller coasters in the world. And I mean, I get what Knott's was trying to do here. They were trying to, refurbish it, make it newer, and extend its service life. But when it comes to big construction projects, things can definitely go wrong. Clearly, something did go wrong here. One does not just announce a refurbishment and then never mention it ever again. One does not simply halt all construction without a very serious reason. Whether or not Knott's is going to sue the contractors is yet to be seen. And who knows, maybe something will happen and this coaster will reopen. But I honestly really doubt that, especially because, all we have are sources, but I really do believe the source that spoke to me. If the source is wrong, then it's wrong, but I'll be sure to update you whenever I get new information about this case because it is a very interesting case. On the bright side, maybe I could get a failed coasters episode out of this. But seriously, if this coaster is headed for the scrapyard, RIP Montezooma's Revenge.